This is Cuba, a small island nation sitting just 90 miles south of the United States coastline. 90 miles. That is less than the distance between some cities in the same state. Cuba's total land area is 109,884 square kilometers, roughly the size of the state of Tennessee. It is the largest island in the Caribbean Sea, stretching 1,250 kilometers from its western tip to its eastern edge. It is not a giant country. It is not a military superpower. It does not have a massive economy. Yet for over 60 years, Cuba has been the single most persistent thorn in the side of the most powerful nation on Earth. Cuba's population is approximately 11 million people, a relatively small number by global standards. For comparison, the city of Cairo in Egypt has more people than the entire country of Cuba. Yet this island of 11 million has defied, frustrated, embarrassed, and outmaneuvered the United States of America, a country of 335 million people and the world's largest military for more than 6 decades. Now look at Cuba's neighborhood on the map. To the north, just 90 miles away, sits the United States of America. To the east, across a short stretch of ocean, is the island of Hispaniola, shared by Haiti and the Dominican Republic. To the southeast lies Jamaica. To the west, across the Gulf of Mexico, sits Mexico, and to the south, across the Caribbean Sea, lies the northern coast of South America, Colombia, and Venezuela. Cuba sits at the center of all of this, and that location, that geography, is exactly why the United States has never been able to simply walk away from it. Before we talk about why the USA wants to control Cuba, we need to understand what Cuba actually possesses, because this island is far more valuable than most people realize. Cuba holds one of the most strategically significant geographic positions in the entire Western Hemisphere. The Strait of Florida, which runs between Cuba and the United States, is one of the most important maritime corridors in the world. Enormous volumes of commercial shipping, oil tankers, and naval vessels pass through these waters every single day. Whoever controls Cuba has a front row seat over that entire corridor. Cuba also sits at the entrance to the Gulf of Mexico, home to massive American oil infrastructure, key naval bases, and the coastlines of Texas, Louisiana, and Florida. A hostile power with a presence in Cuba could threaten all of that from very close range. Then there are Cuba's natural resources. Cuba holds the world's second largest reserves of nickel, a metal critical for electric vehicle batteries, stainless steel, and military hardware. Cuba also has significant cobalt deposits, offshore oil reserves, fertile agricultural land, and a literacy rate of over 99%. It produces more doctors per capita than almost any other country on Earth. Cuba also carries enormous symbolic power for the developing world, particularly across Latin America and Africa. Cuba has represented the idea that a small country can stand up to American pressure and survive. That symbolism has given Cuba influence far beyond what its size or economy would normally allow. The relationship between the United States and Cuba did not begin with Fidel Castro. It began more than a century ago. In 1898, the United States helped Cuba gain independence from Spain in the Spanish-American War. But that help came with strings attached. American businesses bought up Cuban land, sugar plantations, tobacco farms, and infrastructure. American companies controlled enormous portions of the Cuban economy. The United States even maintained a permanent military base at Guantanamo Bay, a base that technically still exists today. For the first half of the 20th century, Cuba was effectively an extension of American economic and political power. Havana became a playground for wealthy Americans. American corporations extracted enormous profits from Cuban sugar and tobacco, while the Cuban government remained corrupt and deeply tied to American interests. Then, in 1959, Fidel Castro overthrew the American-backed government of Fulgencio Batista. Castro nationalized American-owned businesses, declared Cuba a socialist state, and aligned the country with the Soviet Union. Almost overnight, the United States lost what it had treated as its own backyard. and it was happening just 90 miles from American soil. The response was swift and relentless. A comprehensive economic embargo was imposed in 1962 that has lasted over 60 years. The CIA trained Cuban exiles for the disastrous Bay of Pigs invasion in 1961, which failed completely. Multiple assassination attempts were launched against Castro, none succeeded. Then came the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, when Soviet nuclear missiles placed on Cuban soil brought the world to the edge of destruction for 13 days. Cuba has been at the center of American strategic anxiety ever since. The reasons Washington wants control, or at minimum a friendly government, in Cuba today are different from 1962, but no less powerful. There are 5 of them. Geography never changes. Cuba's position controlling the Strait of Florida and the Gulf of Mexico entrance is permanently valuable. Any adversary with influence in Cuba gains a military and intelligence advantage 90 miles from American soil that Washington considers completely unacceptable. Then there is China. Beijing has been deepening its relationship with Havana significantly. Intelligence facilities reportedly established on Cuban soil can intercept communications from major American military installations in the southeast. China is doing exactly what the Soviet Union did in 1962. Using Cuba as a forward position against America. Critical minerals are the third reason. Nickel and cobalt are now national security resources in the clean energy age. China is already investing in Cuban mines. Washington cannot allow Beijing to permanently control that access. Political influence is fourth. Cuba remains a symbol of resistance across Latin America. Venezuela, Nicaragua, and Bolivia have all looked to Havana for inspiration. Bringing Cuba into the American orbit would eliminate that alternative influence in America's own neighborhood. Finally, domestic politics. Over 1.2 million Cuban Americans live in the United States, concentrated heavily in Florida, a decisive swing state. Their consistent political pressure has kept the embargo alive and Cuba permanently on Washington's agenda for over 6 decades. If Cuba is so valuable, why has America not simply taken it? 3 reasons. The Bay of Pigs in 1961 proved that Cubans will fight fiercely against any foreign military on their soil, regardless of their feelings about their own government. A quick, clean invasion was never realistic, and that lesson has never left Washington's memory. The international cost would be catastrophic. An invasion would destroy American relationships across Latin America, hand Russia and China an enormous propaganda victory, and openly contradict America's self-image as a defender of national sovereignty and international law. And after Iraq and Afghanistan, neither the American public nor its politicians have any appetite for another occupation. Taking Cuba is one thing. Holding it, rebuilding it, and turning it into a stable pro-American state is an entirely different and enormously expensive commitment. Cuba is 109,884 square kilometers, 11 million people. An island most people could drive across in a few hours. And yet this small island triggered the closest the world has ever come to nuclear war, survived 60 years of economic embargo from the most powerful country on Earth, and remained stubbornly independent in America's own backyard for over 6 decades. The United States wants Cuba for its geography, its minerals, its strategic position, and its symbolic significance. It guards the entrance to the Gulf of Mexico and sits at the crossroads of the Caribbean, a location that American military planners have considered essential to national security for over 100 years. But Cuba also represents something that cannot be drawn on any map. It represents the idea that small nations can say no to powerful ones and survive. Whether that remains true, as China moves deeper into the island, as American pressure builds, and as Cuba faces its own serious economic crisis, is one of the most consequential questions in the Western Hemisphere today. The map has not changed. Cuba is still 90 miles away, and that distance, small as it looks, has proven to be one of the most important stretches of ocean in modern history.